everybody. I hope you're doing well. My name is Reverend Donna Serafina. I'm a psychic medium. I am a spiritualist reverend. I have a special interest in missing persons and unsolved homicides. I have a background in criminal justice, and I have had multiple family members murdered. So that's where that brings me today. I would like to mention that we do have some new information in the Summer Wells case, surprisingly, because it's been so long. So what had happened was I had disseminated a couple readings I did on that case, but because that case was so horrific, I decided not to make the last several readings that I did public.
A voice in the dark says it knows where pieces of this case lie, but that voice is not evidence. Tonight, we trace a set of claims that have rippled through the true crime conversation. A self-described psychic medium, a neighbor who reacts with recognition, a barn, a sedan trunk, and visions so painful their holder withheld them from the public. None of this replaces forensics, but the moment such claims surface, they demand a sober, methodical response to separate feeling from fact, sight from substantiation, and rumor from anything investigators can test. Before we go further, if you follow this channel for updates, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss factual developments or verified appeals tied to this investigation. When cases are messy and emotions run high, staying on top of confirmed information matters more than ever. Reverend Donna Serafina presents herself as a psychic medium with a background in criminal justice contexts, a combination that draws attention precisely because it blends the intuitive with the procedural. Reverend Donna says she has experienced disturbing impressions about the disappearance of Summer Wells, impressions she did not release earlier because the visions were graphic, traumatic, and legally fraught. She describes arriving at details she says were so specific that they could point to locations and actions, but she also expresses the weight of knowing the difference between what she feels and what investigators must prove in court. That tension between conviction born of vision and the burden of proof required by law frames everything that follows. In a recorded conversation made public by others involved in the case, Reverend Donna recounts discussing her impressions with a local neighbor known as Fred Hill. According to her account, Fred reacted with immediate recognition when she mentioned a barn and a possible handoff, a phrase suggesting a transfer of a person or object from one party to another. Fred's reaction matters here because, as a local, his recognition could indicate prior knowledge. It could also be coincidence or even a performance. Either way, the interaction amplified interest. In social media and some corners of true crime commentary, that kind of corroborative moment, a layperson's instant "I know that place," often moves a claim from abstract to actionable in the public mind. For detectives, however, recognition is only the start of verification, not its end. Reverend Donna's descriptions are unsettlingly specific. She says one memory or vision includes a sedan trunk being used in a transfer and a person described as having a hunchback involved in the movement. She identifies two possible transfer sites, including a location named Stardust and a barn Fred reportedly recognized. Those particulars are the kind that either allow investigators to target searches or, if false, waste precious resources and traumatize families. The presence of a named landmark like Stardust is a double-edged sword. It makes a claim testable, but it also risks drawing vigilante attention and contamination of a scene if the public acts before authorities do. Reverend Donna says the visions have personally traumatized her. She speaks of nightmares, emotional distress, and a reluctance to broadcast grotesque images without careful thought about the harm such images could cause. That restraint is notable. Many public figures trade on sensational revelations, but Reverend Donna's reported choice to withhold certain readings until she felt they might be useful, or until she had corroboration from someone local, suggests an awareness of the ethical complexities here. Still, trauma does not equal truth, and traumatic visions are not substitute for physical proof. She says she has a top suspect, but has chosen not to name them publicly. That restraint is legally prudent. Publicly accusing someone without corroborating evidence risks defamation, could interfere with the prosecution, and can endanger lives. In an active investigation, accusations should flow to law enforcement through appropriate channels, ideally supported by material that can be tested. Detectives rely on statements that can be corroborated with probes that include interviews, surveillance, digital records, search warrants, and forensic analysis. Psychic impressions do not fit neatly into those boxes. If they yield useful leads, they must be translated into testable, documented claims that investigators can pursue without violating due process. One of the practical questions Reverend Donna raises is whether a barn, or the other sites she named, might yield physical evidence. She asked whether canine units could detect anything in such locations and whether ground searches could be fruitful. Here again, there is a clear protocol. Cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, soil analysis, and controlled excavations can detect human remains or disturbances under the right conditions. But these techniques require legal authorization, chain of custody safeguards, and professional coordination. They cannot lawfully or ethically be conducted by untrained civilians following a viral video or by online sleuths who might inadvertently contaminate a scene. The plan for a live stream, a public appearance with commentators and interested parties, is the other side of the story. Reverend Donna has announced a live event with figures in the true crime community. Live broadcasts can be powerful tools for awareness and crowdsourcing information, but they carry clear risks in an active investigation. Revealing unvetted allegations on camera can spread misinformation, invite harassment, and pressure law enforcement into premature or misdirected action. If the aim is to help, the safest path is to collect any verifiable information privately and deliver it to investigators who can evaluate and act on it appropriately. Public live streams should never be the primary vehicle for submitting potential evidence to police. We must be explicit about the legal and ethical stakes. When someone claims to know a burial site or a handoff location, 3 things should happen. First, the claim must be documented precisely: who said what, when, and where. Second, the claim should be conveyed to law enforcement through formal, traceable channels. Third, investigators should evaluate the claim's specificity and testability. Can it be translated into a discrete search warrant, a targeted canine deployment, or a query of phone, vehicle, and property records? Absent those steps, the public dissemination of claims can create harm, false hope for families, sensationalism for viewers, and the risk of contamination for any potential scene. This is not to dismiss the emotional or social dimensions of Reverend Donna's account. People who lose children live with a hunger for any lead that might end the wait. The community's desire for answers is understandable, and public figures who say they can help attract an audience precisely because the institutional search has not resolved the case. That pressure fuels the spread of tips, some useful, some false, and it underscores the responsibility of those with public platforms to temper claims with clear caveats and a call to verified action. So what should viewers do now? Treat Reverend Donna's statements as what they are: reported impressions and unverified leads. If you have concrete information, names, dates, vehicle descriptions, images, or physical locations you can legally share, take them directly to investigators, provide sworn statements if required, and preserve any potential evidence without touching or moving it. Resist the urge to act as an amateur investigator online. Leave scene searches to trained professionals. If you are a member of the media or a public commentator, prioritize responsible reporting, contextualize psychic claims, avoid suggesting they are proof, and make clear the difference between an impression and a forensic lead. In the end, the most constructive role for anyone following this story is disciplined patience. Document what you hear, verify before you amplify, and pass potential leads to authorities rather than social feeds. Unreliable narrators sometimes hold kernels of real information. Reliable-sounding witnesses sometimes lie. The job of justice, whether carried out by detectives or by a responsible public, is to convert claim into corroboration, rumor into evidence. Reverend Donna's account has reopened questions for investigators. Is there a barn or a Stardust site that yields testable traces? Can canine or geophysical methods detect disturbances that match her description? Did anyone involved enter a sedan trunk or exhibit physical traits she described? Those are the sorts of questions detectives will test, or should test, before conclusions are drawn. This case, like so many that hold a community in suspense, grows more complex as more voices join the chorus. The path forward is one the justice system knows well: collect, corroborate, and conserve. Spiritual insight can be a catalyst for attention, but the work that brings closure is forensic, procedural, and painstaking. If Reverend Donna's impressions can be translated into specific, verifiable information, the next step is simple in principle. Give it to law enforcement and let the professionals evaluate it. Until then, keep the focus on verified facts and the humane treatment of everyone involved. Keep Summer's name alive with careful, constructive attention, not amplified conjecture.